Mohamed, you've been with us through all these jobs reports month after month, and here we've got this disappointing report. You've talked before about escape velocity here in this economy. Does this report make it much more difficult to reach that?
Yes, it does. I mean, there's some bright spot, Betty. Long-term unemployment is down, average earnings are up, and prior months have been revised better. But despite that, it is really worrisome that we have the lowest monthly job creation since last June and the lowest participation rate since 1979.
Yeah.
So yes, that makes escape velocity less likely.
Well, and Mike McKee had pointed out the whole labor participation and people dropping out. What do you think? Is it the baby boomer phenomenon, or is there something more, I could say, sinister going on here with people dropping out?
So demographics have certainly something to do with it, but there is something more sinister. I think people are getting discouraged, and importantly, if you look at other indicators, how many people are working to support others, those indicators suggest there's going to be greater burdens on the labor force.
Mohamed, clearly this participation rate is very troubling, but also if you take a look at average wages earned during the hour, that's also another very disturbing part of this report. What's your take on that?
Well, I think there's a few things. We know that depending on what set of skills you have, if you have a globalized set of skills, you are very well positioned in this economy. If you don't, then you are facing both quantity issues and earnings issues. And unfortunately, we as a society did not invest enough in the globalized part of the economy. We focused on the non-tradable side, and now that's coming back to bite us.
Mohamed, let me play for you just a comment from your colleague Bill Gross, who was on our network yesterday. This is what he said investors should now do in the markets in light of what we've seen in the economy.
Most successful investors like Buffett and Soros and Gross and Dan Fuss and others have been, relatively aggressive investors over the past 20 to 30 years. Perhaps now it's time for the defense to take over and to begin to preserve capital as opposed to expand it at a double-digit rate.
Should that now be the priority, being defensive?
Yeah, we've said it over and over again, overall defensive, selectively offensive. And for a number of reasons. One is valuations. Prices really matter, and we've come a very long way. Second, the paradigm has changed. It's much harder now to get growth out of the economy, and it's going to be much harder to get top revenue growth for companies. And thirdly, it's a much more globalized and interconnected economy. So when something happens over here, it's felt over here quite a bit. So yeah, unfortunately, we've been telling investors lower return expectations, look at risk as much as you look at return, and have a global perspective.